You're lowering the dignity of this house just by standing there. Can you go back to your room? Olivia, my younger sister, said that to me. In the living room, preparations for a home party hosted by our parents were underway, but I was there not as a guest, but as an unpaid maid. As I worked with sweat on my forehead, my mother Haley looked down at me with cold eyes. Olivia is right, Madison. Once you finish cleaning, leave through the back door. Today's guests are all important people. I gripped the duster in my hand tightly, but I didn't show any emotion on my face. Their words were no longer knives that wounded me, but fuel that ignited my determination to become independent. I understand. Once I finish my work, I'll go to the library, so you don't have to prepare any meal for me. I answered calmly and continued working without putting any feeling into my voice. I heard my father Noah laugh through his nose without even looking up from his newspaper, saying, "I never planned to prepare anything for you in the first place." Since I was old enough to understand the world, there had always been a clear hierarchy in this house. At the top sat my sister Olivia. She was called the son of the family, forgiven for anything and given whatever she wanted. I was the shadow, a being meant to be exploited. However, I was not the obedient sheep they believed me to be. I was quietly making my own preparations behind their backs. After school, I washed dishes at a cafe, and on weekends, I worked as a cashier at a supermarket, juggling part-time jobs to save money. My grades were always at the top, and I attended university on a scholarship. If I endured just 2 more years, I would leave this house and never look back. Hey, are you listening? My wine glass has fingerprints on it. I silently picked up the glass and wiped it again with a cloth. I'm sorry, Olivia. Is this satisfactory? When I handed it to her, she snorted and smiled triumphantly. You should have done that from the start. You really are best suited to being a servant. My mother and father giggled along with her. Watching that scene, I pitied them in my heart. They didn't know. They didn't know that the only reason they could maintain their luxurious lifestyle was because of the money sent by my grandmother Evelyn, who lived overseas. And they didn't know that the only person my grandmother truly cared about was me, the one who wrote her letters every month. There was even a period when my parents were too lazy to write letters to my grandmother and made me ghostwrite them. That was why I had quietly strengthened my own connection with her. My grandmother didn't know everything about my situation, but she understood that I was diligent and sincere. Well then, I'm heading out. After finishing the cleaning, I opened the back door. The lively music and laughter from the party echoed behind me, but I didn't look back even once. When I sat in my usual seat at the library and opened my reference book, I finally felt my breathing deepen. However, in a fleeting moment, the screen of my phone lit up with a notification from Facebook. Olivia has updated her relationship status. It's complicated. I swiped it away with a cold gaze. To my sister Olivia, romance was a game, a sport where taking someone else's partner was the goal. It happened 3 years ago, when I was a senior in high school. At the time, I had a boyfriend named Lucas. He was a serious student in the same science club, not flashy, but the only person who sincerely listened to my dreams for the future. I had kept the relationship a secret from my family, but one day, while I was out shopping, my mother happened to spot us, and that was the end of everything. So, you have a boyfriend? What kind of guy is he? Bring him over next time. I refused firmly, but my parents insisted that I introduce him as a matter of courtesy, so I ended up inviting Lucas to our house that weekend. On the day, I told Lucas to come dressed as he normally would, but Olivia had other plans. She greeted us at the entrance wearing a short dress with a plunging neckline and heavy perfume. Nice to meet you, Lucas. I've heard about you from Madison. I'm Olivia, so let's get along. Without even finishing her greeting properly, Olivia looked up at him with flirtatious eyes. During the conversation in the living room, Olivia skillfully monopolized the discussion and treated me as if I were invisible. My sister is always in worn-out sweats at home. She only talks about science. Isn't that boring? While Olivia joked about me and insulted me playfully, she was intertwining her foot with Lucas's under the table. However, the decisive moment came when I returned from the bathroom. In the shadow of the hallway, Olivia was clinging to Lucas. When I cleared my throat, the two separated. But Olivia showed no sign of guilt and wiped her lipstick with her finger as she looked at me and laughed. Sorry, it seems Lucas gets along better with me. Lucas didn't apologize to me at all and left as if running away. Then the next day, he broke up with me by email. Well, Lucas is a boy after all. It's natural he'd be drawn to a glamorous girl like Olivia, my mother said, and my father nodded. Madison, you're not making enough effort to be attractive. Men won't follow you if all you do is study. Let Olivia have him this time. I didn't shed a single tear then. I only heard something inside me freeze completely. Since that day, I began hiding my private life. My silence and obedient attitude were a camouflage to deceive them. Tomorrow is my 22nd birthday. It was the day the package from my grandmother Evelyn was supposed to arrive, and I held on to that as emotional support. On the morning of my 22nd birthday, I woke up slightly earlier than usual. It would be a lie to say I wasn't expecting anything. Every year, my grandmother Evelyn, who lived overseas, sent a birthday card, a check, and a small, heartfelt gift. She had been a businesswoman and was extremely meticulous. Promises and time must be honored, Madison, was her favorite saying, and she would never forget my birthday. However, when I went down to the living room, there was a strange atmosphere drifting in the air. My parents and Olivia, who usually slept until noon, were already up. Moreover, they looked strangely restless. Oh, you're up. Happy birthday, Madison. My mother said that, but her eyes were not looking at me. On the table sat a small sponge cake, still inside the clear plastic container from the supermarket, with the mark of a half-price sticker faintly visible. Thank you. Did anything arrive from Grandma? When I asked, my father cleared his throat and spread his newspaper wide to hide his face. My mother exaggeratedly shrugged her shoulders. Well, nothing arrived. She's getting old, you know. Maybe she finally started losing her memory. Yeah, Grandma kept repeating the same story on the phone last time. Maybe she just forgot your birthday? Olivia chimed in with a smirk, fiddling with her phone. But last month, when I talked to my grandmother, she gave sharp analysis about the current economic situation and praised my university grades with specific comments. Would someone like that lose their cognitive ability so drastically in a single month? But Grandma has never been late even once. It might be a postal error, so I'm going to check. When I tried to take out my phone, my mother stopped me with a sharp voice. Stop it. Do you want to embarrass her? If you point out that she forgot, she'll be hurt. And if she sent something and it didn't arrive, it'll come back eventually. My father added in an intimidating voice from behind his newspaper. Their reactions were far too extreme and desperate. If I forced a call then, they would stop me even by force, and there was a real risk they would confiscate my phone. Fine, I won't contact Grandma. When I said that, the three of them let out a noticeably relieved sigh. At that moment, an alarm rang loudly in my head. They were hiding something. I took one bite of the dry, flavorless cake on the table. Is this the only present? When I asked with sarcasm, Olivia burst into laughter. Isn't it enough? You're living here for free. You should be grateful. At that moment, the doorbell rang. My father jumped to his feet as if jolted and shouted, I'll get it, before running down the hallway. From the hallway, I heard the voice of what sounded like a delivery man, and my father's hushed whispering, followed by the sound of the door closing, and then my father returned. When I asked, what was that? My father averted his eyes and answered, just a wrong delivery or something. It was a package for the house next door. There was a faint ink stain on his hand as if he had signed some kind of document, and I did not miss the unnatural bulge in his pocket. Something shaped like a car key. My heart began to pound rapidly. Did my grandmother send something other than a check or a small gift like a book? But I had no proof. I took a deep breath to keep myself calm. I would never forget this sense of wrongness, the bulge in my father's pocket, and the conspiratorial glances between my mother and Olivia. Thanks for the meal. I have a shift, so I'm heading out. I stood up and went back to my room to get ready. A few weeks after my 22nd birthday, our household's financial situation changed as if by magic. My father, Noah, had been laid off years earlier and had not held a stable job since, jumping from shady investment schemes to short-term jobs, failing at each one, and my mother's part-time office job brought in very little. One rainy night when I came home from my part-time job, the entrance hall looked like the storage room of a luxury boutique. Look, Madison, this bag is this season's new release. It normally takes 3 months to get one, but I managed to get it specially. My mother gushed like a child, stroking a leather bag that likely cost more than half a year of my part-time wages. That's amazing. But how did you get all this? Did Dad win the lottery or something? When I asked, my father, who was polishing a brand new Rolex on the living room sofa, snorted and answered, I don't leave things to luck like a lottery. My years of investment finally paid off. Cryptocurrency, you wouldn't understand. It was obviously a lie, but they seemed desperate to believe their own fiction. Olivia's change was even more dramatic. She began going to a cosmetic surgery clinic, calling it an investment in herself. How do I look? Perfect, right? With this, the modeling agencies won't be able to ignore me anymore. Olivia checked her face from various angles in front of the mirror and kept taking selfies. Madison, shouldn't you care a little about your appearance too? That sweater is covered in pilling. Just looking at it makes me feel pathetic. Wearing a new designer jacket, Olivia nudged my shoulder as she spoke. I don't have money. Unlike someone else here, I have to earn everything on my own to survive. When I snapped back, my mother frowned. What an unpleasant thing to say. We're family, so shouldn't you be happy for your father's success? With that miserable attitude, Fortune will keep running away from you. Fortune wasn't running away. They had stolen my fortune. They had cashed in whatever extremely valuable thing my grandmother had sent, and they were burning through it. Realizing that truth didn't make me tremble with anger. It filled me with a deep, icy contempt. It would all run dry someday. When that time came, that would be my chance to strike back, so I threw myself even more into my studies and part-time jobs. My only refuge was a quiet corner in the back of the university library, in the old books section where few people came. One afternoon, as I struggled with a thick econometrics textbook, a voice came from above me. That book's chapter 4 is a bit outdated, so you should read the updated supplement along with it. When I looked up, a young man was standing there. A worn white shirt, a slightly faded cardigan. Behind his black-rimmed glasses, his eyes were intelligent and carried a gentle light. That was how I met Mason. Although I was usually wary of others, I found myself opening up to him naturally. He never looked at my worn-out clothes or exhausted face with judgment in his eyes. Over the next several months, we became comrades who spent time together in the library. He laughed and said, I'm just a broke student, you know. He always drank the cheap coffee from the university cafeteria, and he got around by bus or bicycle, so I never doubted his words. Madison, you're amazing. No matter how tough things get, you keep trying to carve out your own path. That kind of strength isn't something everyone has. When Mason said that as we walked across the campus at sunset, I felt for the first time that my life had been acknowledged. We naturally grew closer and began dating. However, secrets never stay hidden for long. One weekend, while I was working at the cafe where I had my part-time job, a black luxury car pulled up outside. An elderly gentleman in a tailored suit stepped out. When he entered the shop, he didn't approach me behind the counter. He walked straight toward Mason, who was sitting in the corner reading a book while waiting for me. Sir, it's time. The board meeting is about to begin. I froze in the middle of taking an order, staring at them in disbelief. That night, Mason appeared in front of my old apartment building and confessed an astonishing truth. He was the heir of one of the most powerful real estate conglomerates in the country, the Harrison Group. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. A lot of people approach me for my family or money. I wanted you to see me for who I am. He held my hand nervously. Instead of getting angry, I ended up laughing. What a coincidence. I've been looking for someone who sees me for who I really am too. We shared our secrets, and our bond grew even stronger. But when Mason dropped me off at home one evening, Olivia happened to see it through the window. Unbelievable. My plain, shabby sister dating the heir of the Harrison Group? You really never know what life has in store. The next night, while I was studying in my room, Olivia barged in without even knocking. In her hand was a tablet showing Mason's photo and his corporate profile. It seemed she had figured it out from the license plate of the car she spotted last night. He's just a study partner. It has nothing to do with you. When I brushed her off coldly, my parents appeared behind her. If you've become acquainted with such a wonderful young man, it's only proper to invite him here and introduce him. Invite him to dinner this weekend. No, you're planning to take advantage of him. When I refused, my mother's expression changed instantly. How dare you speak to your parents like that? If you won't invite him, we'll go to your university ourselves and talk to him directly. Maybe we should tell him. Our daughter doesn't follow the rules at home, and we're very troubled. How about that? Forced by their threats, I reluctantly agreed to the weekend dinner. On Saturday night, our dining room was decorated like a noble family's banquet hall. When Mason arrived, my parents greeted him with the most saccharine voices they could muster. But the most bizarre one was Olivia. She appeared in a crimson dress cut nearly down to her navel, reeking of heavy perfume. Nice to meet you, Mason. I'm Olivia, Madison's younger sister. Thank you for taking care of her. While greeting him, Olivia placed both her hands over Mason's and stared directly into his eyes. During dinner, Olivia forced herself between Mason and me. Madison is always quiet and gloomy at home. What do you two even talk about? Economics? Wow, sounds complicated. I could talk about much more fun things, you know. As she said that, Olivia slipped off her heels under the table and traced her toes along Mason's leg. I do talk about economics with Madison, but her insights are sharp and stimulating. I'm drawn to her intelligence. When Mason said that firmly, Olivia's smile stiffened, but she didn't give up. She deliberately spilled her wine and tried to wipe his thigh. It's all right, I can do it myself. Mason stopped her hand coolly and looked at me with an apologetic smile. I gave him a quick glance that meant, I'm sorry. As he left, Mason remarked, I've gotten a clear understanding of your parents' and your sister's unique personalities, leaving behind that bit of irony, though my family took it as a compliment. Madison, be prepared. I think I might be falling for him. Hearing Olivia's triumphant declaration, I laughed coldly inside. The following week, a single phone call from my grandmother Evelyn overseas would bring a real storm upon our household. Tomorrow, I'm coming to celebrate Madison's 23rd birthday. My mother's face turned pale as she listened to the phone call. Oh no, my mother is coming. She said she's already heading to the airport. My father groaned and held his head. This is bad. She has sharp intuition. If she sees how we're living now, she'll suspect where the money is coming from. That's not all, Olivia shouted. Grandma will definitely ask, what happened to the present I sent last year? If she finds out we don't have the car, we're finished. Yes, that was what they feared the most. Listen, Madison, don't say anything unnecessary. When your grandmother arrives, act happy. And if she asks about last year's present, you'll say, thank you for the lovely cake. Got it? There was never a car. That's the story. My mother chimed in from the side. If you say anything extra, I'll stop being the guarantor for your university scholarship. If you don't want to end up homeless, you'll play along. They had apparently forgotten they were the ones who hid the car in the first place. I felt more pity than anger, but I wasn't foolish enough to rebel here. Fine, I'll play along. In exchange, let me invite Mason to tomorrow's dinner. I want to introduce him to Grandma. Very well. With him there, the conversation is less likely to get complicated. My mother agreed with calculated ease. I returned to my room and sent a message to Mason. You'll get to see an interesting show tomorrow. His reply came as a short sentence. Got it. I'll bring popcorn. At the upscale French restaurant, my parents and Olivia sat with overly polite, stiff expressions like borrowed cats. Olivia looked displeased, but as soon as Mason arrived, she planted herself beside him. You sit over there, she said, assigning me the seat at the far end, which actually worked perfectly for me. From there, I could see everyone's faces. The heavy doors opened and Grandma appeared. Thank you for coming. My parents rushed forward, but my grandmother held up her hand to stop them. No need for exaggerated greetings. Sit down. With that single sentence, the atmosphere tightened instantly. Grandma wished me a happy birthday, then looked at Mason and said, as if testing him, I've heard you're from the Harrison family. Isn't that a bit too much for my granddaughter to handle? Mason remained unfazed and replied, I'm the one who's not worthy. I'm working hard to become someone who deserves her, which satisfied my grandmother. During the meal, my parents desperately tried to act like a close and happy family, but they were nervous the entire time under Grandma's sharp gaze. As the main course ended, Grandma dabbed her mouth with a napkin and quietly began. Now that we've eaten, why don't we talk a little about the past? My parents' backs stiffened. Last year, I sent a certain birthday gift for Madison, didn't I? Noah, Haley, on the phone you told me. Madison is overjoyed and uses it every day. Then, in a light tone as if changing the subject, she asked me a question. Madison, did you like the Volkswagen I sent you last year? I chose it because I thought it would be useful for you to commute to university. For a moment, time seemed to stop. I clenched my fist under the table, looked straight into her eyes, and said, "A car." "What are you talking about, Grandma?" I answered with genuine astonishment. "I never received any car. All I got last year was a supermarket sponge cake and the message that you were getting forgetful and had forgotten my present." My father shot to his feet as if jolted. "Madison, are you so nervous that your memory is fading? The car is in the garage. You're just taking such good care of it that you don't drive it, right?" He grabbed my shoulder tightly and threatened me with his eyes. "No, Dad. Stop lying. The garage is empty. What I saw was you holding the car key while whispering on the phone. And it was the very next day that our house suddenly filled with designer goods." "Silence," my mother yelled. "You ungrateful child. Mother, don't believe her. She's always had a habit of making things up. It's clear who's lying just by looking at your faces." Grandma's voice was cold enough to freeze the air. At that moment, Olivia spoke in a trembling voice. "I don't know anything. I had nothing to do with it." She tried to cling to Mason with teary eyes. "Mason, please believe me. Mom and Dad just said they had some extra income. I never imagined it was the money from selling Madison's car." Olivia betrayed our parents, trying to save only herself. "You couldn't possibly not have known." Mason removed her hands with a cold expression. "Just a moment ago, you proudly said Dad sold the car and gave me money for the Hawaii trip." Olivia turned bright red and fell silent. Grandma let out a long sigh and motioned toward the restaurant entrance. "If you want to make excuses, tell them." Three men in suits entered through the doorway. "Allow me to introduce them. This is my legal advisor, Mr. Fletcher, and his team." Attorney Fletcher opened a thick file on the table. "This is the sales contract for the Volkswagen dated May 25th of last year. The seller is listed as Madison Sullivan, but handwriting analysis shows a 99.9% match with Haley Sullivan." The color drained from my mother's face. "So what? I'm her mother. I just signed on her behalf." "Signing without the owner's consent and selling their property constitutes a crime." The lawyer continued in an even tone. "What's more problematic is that this transaction required notarization. State law mandates that the transfer of vehicle ownership must be signed in the physical presence of a notary public." He turned a sharp gaze toward my father. "Noah, you had your friend, the notary Donovan, certify this document, didn't you?" "Donovan has already testified under our questioning, saying Noah lied and told me Madison was in front of him, so I notarized it at his request. He now faces losing his notary license. To sell the car my grandmother had gifted me, my mother forged my signature and my father involved his notary friend to perform an illegal certification. This was not a simple family dispute. It was a clear case of organized crime. These are felony offenses. Under normal circumstances, the police would be notified immediately and arrest warrants would be issued." Olivia let out a scream. "No, if Mom and Dad get arrested, what will happen to my life?" Grandma spoke in an exasperated tone. "Olivia, you are just as guilty. Your cosmetic procedures and that dress were all paid for with stolen money." My father placed his hands on the table and bowed his head. "Please help us. Don't involve the police. If we go to prison, our family will be ruined." Grandma sneered, making no effort to hide her contempt. "Noah, Haley, I've been sending you more than enough money every month. It was for the entire family, including Madison. But after investigating, I learned Madison attends university on scholarships and works multiple part-time jobs. Not a single dollar of what I sent ever reached her." Grandma closed her handbag and stood up. "There is only one condition for me not to report this to the police. As of this moment, I sever ties with you as family. All financial support, living expenses, and the mortgage payments will stop immediately. Naturally, you will also forfeit any right to inheritance." "That's impossible. Are you trying to kill us?" "It's a good opportunity for you to become independent. It's what Madison has been doing for years." Grandma gave a signal to her lawyer, who placed an invoice on the table. "By the way, as for today's meal, Miss Evelyn will only be paying for her own portion as well as Madison's and Mason's. You must pay the remaining 3 meals and the private room fee, totaling $3,500. $3,500? The head waiter approached coolly. If you don't pay the amount in full, we will have to call the police. Grandma extended her hand toward me. Let's go, Madison. The air here is unpleasant. I looked down at them, who were frozen and collapsing in their seats. Goodbye. Don't ever involve yourselves with me again. We walked out of the restaurant. The air outside felt more refreshing than any I had ever breathed before. After that night, I accepted my grandmother's offer to leave the country where I was born and raised without hesitation. After completing the credit transfer procedures with my university, I moved to the beautiful cobblestone city where my grandmother lived. For me, it was a new canvas, a place where the painful past did not exist. Thanks to my grandmother's connections, I was able to secure a position at a major corporation known to everyone in the region. Of course, Grandma's philosophy was, I'll give you the opportunity, but you must produce the results yourself. Determined to meet her expectations, I worked relentlessly, and within 6 months of joining the company, was entrusted with an important project. And so, I began to build my career through my own efforts. On one sunny weekend, my grandmother winked at me in front of her garage. This time, it's truly a gift for you. No one will ever take it away from you. There sat a brand new Volkswagen, shining in the sunlight. I held back tears as I embraced my grandmother. Thank you, Grandma. I'll treasure it. Waiting there with a gentle smile was Mason, who had become my fiancé. After graduating from university, he had been appointed to oversee an overseas branch of his family's corporate group, and he chose to come to this country with me. As for my sister Olivia, there is a postscript. Since that day, she apparently tried several times to contact Mason. She sent persistent messages through Messenger, such as, "My sister is deceiving you," and "I'm the one with the proper background for you." But Mason ignored every one of them. And when we officially announced our engagement and our photos from our debut in the local social scene made the news, her ambitions were utterly crushed. The sister who once stole my first love and tried again to take away the best partner I had ever found was ultimately forced to accept total defeat before the overwhelming disparity and Mason's rejection. Meanwhile, what happened to my parents and Olivia was nothing less than tragic. According to what I heard through rumors, they were unable to pay the expensive bill at the restaurant that night and ended up in a police incident, and the story spread quickly, causing them to lose their social credibility. Furthermore, after Grandma completely cut off all financial support, they fell behind on their loan payments and had their pretentious mansion repossessed, eventually being forcibly evicted. Now, the three of them live day by day in a damp, moldy, tiny apartment in a dangerous part of the city. Olivia, who had never worked a day in her life, now seemed to be making a living through a low-wage part-time job, though it didn't appear to be able to last for long. One evening, after I finished work, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I heard a voice I recognized. My mother's. Yet it held none of its former intimidation, only weakness and exhaustion. Madison? Please don't hang up. Help us. We don't even have food. The electricity is about to be shut off. We're family, aren't we? I heard you're living well now. Just a little. Could you send us something? Her selfishness didn't anger me anymore. I felt only pity. If you need help, you should sell the designer bags and watches you bought back then. Or have you already sold everything? I told you. I'm not your family anymore. Don't ever call me again. I hung up before she could respond and blocked the number. Shall we go, Madison? Mason placed a hand on my shoulder. Yes, let's go. I held the keys to my brand new Volkswagen tightly and started the engine. The car moved forward with a light, cheerful sound. Beyond the windshield stretched a future filled only with freedom, peace, and the brilliant life I have claimed with my own hands.